Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to be discussing the militarization of police. The U.S. military, through the 1033 program, has the ability to transfer military-grade equipment, and through this program, the Secretary of Defense is permitted to transfer without charge excess U.S. Department of Defense personal property, such as supplies and equipment, to state and local law enforcement. Our proposition is that the U.S. military should be prohibited from transferring military-grade equipment to domestic police forces. Our contentions are, first, that the use of police combat weaponry to serve drug warrants and respond to peaceful protests goes against citizens instead of protecting and serving. Number two, the distribution of combat weaponry to police departments has a long-term negative financial impact on the citizens of the United States. Number three, the 1033 program allows the government to distribute the surplus of military weapons and gear for civilian police departments, which essentially does not benefit U.S. citizens. If the 1033 program, number four, if the 1033 program was abolished, then the government would not have means for dumping military weapons. Therefore, the manufacturing and purchase of excess military weapons would no longer be needed, allowing there to be less need of tax revenue going towards the military from U.S. citizens. Back to our first thing, the use of police combat weaponry to serve drug warrants and respond to peaceful protests goes against citizens instead of protecting and serving. Police forces have shown extreme responses to protests and arrests through their empowerment with combat weaponry. When you arm a police like soldiers and outfit them with military weapons and train them on military tactics and tell them they're fighting a war, whether it's a war on crime or drugs or looters, they're going to start seeing themselves as soldiers and seeing the people they serve less as citizens with rights and more as potential threats. And that's what we're seeing, said Bradley Bothwell, author of the book of Rise of the Warrior Cop. The World Socialist website stated that on Wednesday, March 4th, 2015, the United States Department of Justice released a report documenting a pattern of unlawful conduct within the Ferguson Police Department. The report states that the police in St. Louis suburb unlawfully arrest, beat, and taser residents, and that the city's courts engage in practices that have been likened to the operation of the debtor's prison. Having a militarized approach in stopping violent terrorist groups or individuals, whether in America or overseas, does not effectively protect citizens. As RAND Corporation showed in studying nearly 300 terrorist groups between 1698 and 2006, over 83% of them were ended or dismantled by negotiations, integration into the political process, intelligence, or policy. Only 7% were ended with military force. Second point is the distribution of combat weaponry to police departments has a long-term negative financial impact on the citizens of the United States. Because police departments willingly take combat weaponry that is over-manufactured or purchased by the military, there is a constant production of these weapons, causing more money loss from citizens. According to Curtis S. Dubai, a leading expert on tax reform, the Treasury Department released in October 2014 figures showing that the federal tax revenue exceeded $3 trillion in fiscal year 2014, the first time revenue surpassed that mark. And according to the taxpayer receipt released by the White House, 24.79% of tax revenue is used for national defense purposes. And the chart released by the Office of Undersecretary of Defense and Chief Financial Officer stated that the United States prioritized in their investments a total of $8.5 billion for missile defense and $9.2 billion for missiles and munitions in the year 2014. There has been a significantly large amount of money spent on equipment for military use that eventually is given to police departments. According to Kara Dansky, the senior counsel at the Center for Justice, the Pentagon has sent over $5.1 billion worth of military equipment to American police departments since this program was created in the 1990s. She also stated that there are 460,000 pieces of controlled military equipment currently in the possession of police departments across the country. The 1033 program allows the government to distribute the surplus of military weapons and gear for civilian police departments, which essentially does not benefit U.S. citizens. The 1033 program was created through the perception of a drug and terrorism crisis. Newsweek reporters stated that faced with the bloated military and what is perceived as a worsening drug crisis, the 101st Congress in 1990 enacted the National Defense Authorization Act. Section 1208 of the NDAA allowed the Secretary of Defense to transfer to federal and state agencies personal property of the Department of Defense, including small arms and ammunition that Secretary determines is A, suitable for use by such agencies in encounter drug activities, and B, access to the needs of the Department of Defense. It was called the 1208 program. In 1996, Congress replaced Section 1208 with Section 1033. And according to the Attorney General Eric Holder, this military equipment flowed to local police forces because they were increasingly being asked to resist and counter terrorism. But displays of force in response to mostly peaceful demonstrations can be counterproductive. It makes sense to look at whether military-style equipment is being acquired for the right purposes. The 1033 program was created through the perception of an increasing criminal rate. Matt Accuso, reporter from the New York Times, claimed that today crime has fallen to its lowest levels in a generation. The wars have worn down, and despite current fears, the number of domestic terrorist attacks has declined sharply from the 1960s and the 1970s. Police departments, though, are adding more firepower and military gear than ever. Some, especially in larger cities, have used federal grant money to buy armed cars and other tactical gear. If the 1033 program was abolished, then the government would not have means for dumping military weapons. Therefore, the manufacturing excess military weapons would no longer be needed, allowing there to be less need of tax revenue going towards the military from U.S. citizens. The amount of money spent on weapons can have a better use rather than it being wasted. Michael Schenck from the Huffington Post stated that Representatives Johnson and Labrador and Senator Coburn want to preserve the American way of life. They want our own main streets looking like the war zone. Furthermore, these cost-conscious members of Congress don't want American taxpayer dollars wasted on $30,000 maintenance costs for $700,000 apiece MRAPs or weapons trafficked on eBay and given away to friends. He also stated that weapons that have gone unaccounted for as part of the Pentagon program has totaled in millions of dollars. That's U.S. taxpayer funds that could have spent on education, jobs, or infrastructure. Taxpayer money going towards the excess military weapon use can go towards better training of police and better education of cultural diversity. The Boston Police Department has used radical bias policing as shown by data from reports of 200,000 plus encounters between BDP officers and civilians from 2007 through 2010. According to researchers, the data show that police targeted blacks in 63.3% of encounters, while blacks make up less than a quarter of Boston's population. Jeremy asked...
I've got to cut you off.
Okay.
It's 8 minutes. Sorry.